Now that we have our base construction done, it's time to turn our attention to adding the decorative paper. And again, in the construction guide, the pieces that we will need for this step are listed under the base at the bottom here. We have our platform edge, our platform top, and you recall that this piece is what we're calling the platform, this kind of skinny piece. And then this is our main base top, and these are the front and back for the main base, and then the piece that goes on the drawer front and the false drawer front. So all those sizes are listed in the construction guide, and I wanted to show you in particular the two pieces that go on top of the platform and the main base. You can see I've got some pretty heavy score tape action going on here, and that's because, you know, the pieces all build together. You could use score tape in the center, you could use wet adhesive, something strong. Don't just use ATG, or I wouldn't even, unless you have a very strong glue stick, I wouldn't recommend glue stick. You need to have good adhesion in the centers of these two top platform pieces. So, and then I just want to show you, you can see I've got some little tags here. You may not be able to read them, but they say fleur-de-lis on there, and that's to remind me that there is it's directional, and I need to make sure I get my fleur-de-lis going in the right direction. So I've just saved one of these to put together so you can see that there are three components to it, each one gradually getting larger, so that we get a little reveal of the red and then the black with the dots on the background. And I did you know, pay attention to where my pattern was going to be for each one of these. I cut this black background pattern so I would have a little reveal of the diamonds all the right way around the edges, and of course centered the big black diamonds in this piece. So these don't have any structural component to them, so I'm just building them using my ATG, but you could build with score tape if you preferred. Now, one little thing that I like to do is to make sure I get things centered, is to just refresh my memory with how much of a reveal there is just by turning this paper upside down, and I can see, okay, this one has that little 1/16 of an inch reveal, and that helps me know where to start this on that left edge and get it centered properly. I'll just add some more ATG to the back of this one. And here again, I'm going to flip this over and remind myself how much of a reveal I have. It's just a little bit past the diamonds on the left edge and kind of in line with the diamonds on the top and bottom. Alright, and then I've already added some score tape to the back of these. Now these we're just going to set aside for a few minutes. So let's start with our platform, and I don't think there's any side that looks any better or worse on here, so I'm just picking a side and then removing my score tape backing. And basically for all these pieces we're just going to center them. I'll get this one on, and I think I'll show you the edging. We'll work the edging together. I'm just going to stand up so I can see what I'm doing here. See if my head gets in the way, hopefully not. Again, I think I'll flip that over. Just a little bit less than 1/8 of an inch, it looks like. And I did center my checks, whether or not that's really noticeable because that pattern is so small, I'm not sure, but I did. And now to do the this pattern that's going to go on the edge, you have a decision to make. Do you want the red or the blue? There's one side is red and one side is blue. I've cut this, I think it's about, yeah, it's about a ½ inch wide, just and not just directly on the yellow, because I thought the yellow was just a little bit too narrow. Now if you hold up a strip and you don't think it's too narrow, then go for it. And I'm just going to center this on the front here, and I'm going to keep the red towards the bottom since the top of the platform has red on it. I'm just kind of looking for that spacing, trying to keep that even. And then we'll wrap and make sure we're staying centered as we come around that corner. And then we'll just use our other pieces here to continue that around the remaining sides. So here's our platform all completed. I have the red checks on the top and the border print going all the way around, so we can set that aside for a moment. And here I have the main base. Make sure I have it. I'm going to have the drawer coming out of the right, and of course it needs to be on the bottom. You can decide which way you want to have it. And again, we'll just take off our score tape backing for the main covering and center that on the top. And then I will take these two sides and put center one on the front and center the other one on the back. So I'll be back when I've completed that. So I have the main base with its paper on the front and the back and the top, and the false drawer front goes on the left side, and then we've got the drawer front to put on our right side. So let's turn our attention to those. Now originally I was thinking about using some pattern paper and wrapping this with an edging of pattern paper instead of black. But the paper that I wanted to use, when I tried it, I got more cracking than I liked, and by the time I inked and repaired cracks, you couldn't really tell that. I might as well have just used the black cardstock. So that's what I'm going to do, is edge these pieces with the black cardstock. Now if you want to try something else, that's certainly your option. Now I've also put a post-it note on here, don't forget the handles, because I don't want to get carried away and once I get these with their pattern paper and attach them to the main base without putting the drawer handles on. So I'm going to keep that little sign here in front of me so that I don't forget and get carried away. So let's do, one has a magnet, that's the actual drawer front, and one doesn't, that's the false drawer front. And so let's do our false drawer front first. And what I have here is a strip of just a black cardstock. It's been cut 1 1/8 inches wide and then scored at 1/2 inch and then 5/8 inch to create an 1/8 of an inch channel down the middle. And on the back I put a strip of 1/8 inch score tape in that center channel. That'll help us complete this task, and just some score tape on either side. So I'm going to start by just removing that 1/8 inch, and then I just want to attach the channel, and I'm going to go, let's see here, will I have enough to turn the corners? Yes, so I'm going to just get this centered here. And this thing is about 5 inches long, so if I have, you know, about 3.5 on each side, it's going to get roughly centered. So there we go. I'm just going to set that right down there in the channel. Make sure I've got it straight in there. Alright. And then we can just wrap that around. I'm just wrapping. I kept that corner right tight up against my workbench as I wrapped, and I'll wrap again and just look here to make sure I've got that channel aligned. Okay, and then I'll come around this other side and do that same thing, keeping that centered in that channel. There we go. So now it's that process that we've done on so many of the other ones. If it helps you to make a little crease here in these corners so you can see where you're coming, by all means do so. That's what I'm doing here. And I know it gums up my scissors, but I don't like to remove a whole lot of little score tape backing pieces, so I just come in and do it all at once. And again, no more than a 45-degree angle coming into these corners. And then once we've done that, we can just fold in all of these sides. And then we'll repeat this on the other side, and then fill in with a short piece here on the bottom. I think you can see it wasn't quite long enough, so I've got another spare piece over here that I'll fill in there with. And I'll be back, and then we'll do the drawer front. So it may be a little bit difficult to see here on camera with the black on black, but I have finished all the edges on the false front. So now let's turn our attention to the actual drawer front. And here we have this magnet to contend with, and what we want to do is make sure that we have cardstock covering this magnet. It's always best when you're dealing with magnets to have a layer of paper on top of it. And so what I've done is I've cut a wider finishing strip here. This one is 1 5/8, and I've scored it at 1 inch and then 1 1/8 to again make that 1/8 inch channel, and I've got a 1/2 inch left over on one side and 1 inch on the other side. And then I think you can see here that my score tape backing doesn't go the whole way, and that is on the 1 inch side, and that is because where that magnet is, I don't want to have any adhesive on top of that. I just have found that that works better, so that when we go to put this on, we will line up and make sure that we've got the 1 inch side coming down over the magnet, and that we're keeping an eye on where that gap is and getting it aligned with the magnet. So again, it's the same process. We'll remove this tape from the 1/8 inch channel, and then I'm just keeping my eye on where that channel is and also where I don't have score tape backing. Give that a little burnish there. Then other than that, it's the same thing as what we had before. We'll attach this and come around the sides. So I'll do that, and then we'll be back to see how to finish it. So I have the 1/8 inch channel attached all the way around, and now it's time to finish off attaching the other two sides. And I think I'll start with this 1/2 inch side first and just remove the backing, and we'll cut our corners out just like we've done before. Okay, I've accomplished the 1/2 inch side, getting that attached. That's actually the front of our drawer. And then I also think I'll put a little, I'm going to put an arrow on the front side here so that I know which way is the top when I go to put the pattern paper on, the magnets at the top. And now we'll finish off the inside edges just the same way with those. We just have a deeper V cut to do. So that may be something that you're not comfortable eyeballing. You could, take something and draw your 45-degree angle if you wanted to. I'm just going to go for it. Now these sides are 2 1/8 inch long, and since this tape is only 1 inch wide, if you've judged correctly, you should have about 1/8 inch a flat right here on the end of the finishing strip. Now I'm just folding them over. And when we go to fill in this gap that we have here at the bottom, it's about as wide as this piece of craft cardstock that I have here. We don't have to use that extra wide strip. We can just use our leftovers from when we finished off the false front. So I'll do that next. Okay, I've got the finishing all completed. On the back here, I've covered up my magnet and I've drawn my arrows so that I know which way my pattern paper needs to go. So I'll just remove the score tape backing here, and I did put an extra strip in the middle here just so that when the handle goes on it'll have a little more stability. Check my fleur-de-lis, and let's just look and see. That's about a 1/16 of an inch or so. Give that a burnish. And putting my reminder on there, and I'll repeat that with this other one. Make sure that where I had to make the little join, that's at the bottom, just so it's not as noticeable. And then the next step will be to put the handles on before we attach the pieces to either the drawer or the main box. For the drawer pulls, I'm using these Graphic 45 antique metal door pulls. And let's see if I have one already installed on here. I think that is, they were the right color. I like the antique metal for this project. And so I've already installed one on the drawer front just to test it all out. And so now we'll be ready to put it on the false drawer front. So what I have here, I have a couple of different awls. I have pliers. I have some glossy accents to use as a little bit of glue, and a pin, because no matter how hard I try, my glossy accents is usually clogged and I have to open it up again. So what I did above here was just figure out a way that centered horizontally, and then thought about what distance vertically would make sense, and I made sure that I had my fleur-de-lis going in the right direction before I started this process. And then I just, if you have centered your paper pretty well, then you can use that pattern on the paper to align that. In fact, even if it's off a little bit, it's probably will be more pleasing if you center it on the pattern rather than worrying about, is it a 1/16 of an inch to the left or the right of the entire piece. It just will look more pleasing, I think. And so once you have it centered there, I just, this all is more comfortable for me with the ball end to be able to mark holes, to hold my finger there and just kind of put a little bit of pressure on there to mark the holes so that I can drill them. Now, and I'll drill them with an awl. Now this, I think you can see that this awl I was using to mark the holes is quite a bit wider than this second awl that I have. And this one that's narrower is the one I'm going to use to drill the holes, because I don't want a lot of play in those holes. And so I'm just going to take this awl and get it into that hole, or where I've marked it, and then just kind of twist back and forth until I complete the hole. Now, I know from experience that this awl, the holes need to be elongated just a little bit, so I just twist the awl up and down just a little bit to elongate that hole, and then repeat that process on the other side until I get that hole drilled, and then up and down a little bit to elongate that hole. Okay, so now we're ready to put our handle on, and I put down a piece of patty paper here because I am going to add a little bit of the glossy accents just as a little bit of glue. There's not a lot of glue surfaces here, but I think I can put some around the holes and just a little bit on the edge, not all the way around. It just becomes too tricky to hold on to and to keep it from getting messy. So put some right there. Let's see if my glossy accents is going to cooperate. Oh, it is. So then I'll just line that up with the holes I just made. Hopefully without sliding it around too much. I'm going to use this awl to make sure I'm got it in the holes. Okay, and once I have it lined up with the holes, I just have my little brads that came with the door pull to insert. And I just have my pliers here so I can get a hold and make sure I've pulled that completely through. Repeat that for the other one. I like to put the brad legs in the direction opposite of how the force will be applied on the pole. I don't know if that's necessary or appropriate, but that's just how I have it. And then I'm just going to put a dab of glossy accents underneath each one of these legs before I flatten them down, just as kind of an added insurance policy there. And the only way I know to get at these legs is to put my thumbnail in there. Of course, I'll get some glossy on my thumbnail, so I'll have to watch out for that. Okay. So now I'm going to set that aside to dry along with this one, which is already dry. And while they're drying, I'm going to prep my feet for the project. And I have 4 little wooden feet like this. I just looked for something that was about the height that I wanted. I experimented with different heights. These are, I think, about a ½ inch tall. You obviously could use whatever you wanted. And they were already in my little box. And so I'm going to paint them black. And I'm not going to paint this. This is the surface I'm going to attach to the box, and I'm going to leave that unpainted. My history has shown that if I leave that unpainted, it makes a stronger bond. So I'll get those painted, let the handles dry, and then we'll be back for the next step.